time out.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Veteran Nation. On the panel tonight, we do have Squid Pro Quo. She is joining us, and I believe she is broadcasting also to her channel. So if you're coming in from her channel, welcome. And we have a great show for you tonight. We do have a guest. She is running for Senate. She's also a veteran. She's a mom. She's been on the show before, so we're really happy to have her to talk about her campaign. And welcome to the show, Rebecca Wedding.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
Wow, it's good to have you back.
Wow, just wow. Just Skipper blew right. Introduce Squid. Introduce Rebecca.
They know you
completely, completely ignored that I'm here.
He's like a child. He needs attention.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that thing at the bottom of your face.
My little goatee that
I was going to say, whose face are you talking about?
So anyway, yeah.
Hilarious. Yes, I am simul streaming this on my channel, so you will get.
Did you just make up? You made up a word.
Simul streaming.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's simulcasting, but you know.
Simulcasting, dual streaming. I just whatever. I do what I do.
Dual streaming is what happens when two brothers are made to use the same toilet at the same time.
Wouldn't know.
You'll learn this if you have sons.
Baby Squid's an only child, and
where do you think the Ghostbusters Don't Cross the Streams came from?
I'm just gonna stop talking because this is not about me.
No, it's clearly only about Rebecca and Skipper since he skipped over me tonight. But you know,
Oh wow,
Skipper, what are you kicking in the background? It's always you.
I'm not kicking anything.
Look, all this rumbling going on, and I know it's not Rebecca because we got her set up with a good desk finally.
Oh, that might actually be me. I just sent all my kids upstairs because I was afraid they were being too loud at the door, and now I can hear them. Sounds like elephants upstairs.
What are your floors and ceilings? What are your floors and ceilings made out of? Rice paper?
I don't know.
how much? Well,
on a serious note, before we get even more serious and start to talk to Rebecca about her campaign, I want to just remind everybody that a good friend of our show, the Angry Vet Kevin from Maryland, was found guilty in his federal. I don't even know how to say this. I want to scream and cry and laugh all at the same time. The Angry Vet was found guilty for his federal wiretapping case. Was it yesterday? Skipper, was that yesterday that happened?
No, it was actually like a little bit over a week ago, like a week or two ago. And but he's not sentenced yet.
Yeah, but he's not sentenced, so he is facing 40 years.
Possibly.
He's facing 40 years
doing this to his VA doctor. Just pulling out his phone and saying, "Okay, you told me you weren't going to treat me. Say it to the camera."
The thing I don't understand about that is how is that wiretapping?
It's not. It's
the definition of wiretapping is just not.
It's
That's
pretty
somebody
easy.
trying to make an example of them and creating new terms.
That's true.
It's pretty easy to get a conviction when the judge pretty much denies all of the proposed avenues of defense. And TC knows about that because TC's friend in Minnesota had that happen.
I've had, a couple of cases when you look at my coverage of the story of Lisa Hansen, who was imprisoned for keeping her business open during COVID. Literally, the judge refused to allow any mention of the Constitution during her trial. And when the prosecution summoned me to testify against her, I was chastised by the same public prosecutor, the city prosecutor, that I too was not allowed to mention the Constitution at all during my testimony, and I would be held in contempt. This was coming from the prosecutor threatening me with contempt charges. I'm like, I wanted so bad to say, I couldn't possibly hold you in any more contempt than I already do, sister. But
Oh, as a
But-
female, that's half the problem.
I refuse to comment with Madam Chair in the room.
No,
No.
it's like legitimate. They're women that just feel like they have these positions and it goes to their heads, and then I don't know. I always hated being under a female, especially the female with a chip on her shoulder. So
Yeah.
Females in general suck, especially when they're in power, because they think they have to outwork or
No,
like
Skipper.
outpower everybody.
No. Skipper. No. No. No.
I'm not
Skipper.
doing anything.
Skipper. So yeah, Squid, this is your first time on with us as well, and Skipper's now decided to call it a panel. It used to be Art, Skipper, and I's show, and now you're here, and now it's a panel.
I'm trying out new co-hosts.
No, that's fine. I'll concentrate. I'll grow my channel. That's fine.
Technically, I've been on this channel before, but it's literally I've been in the chat and he sends me a link. And it's like, I've never actually gotten an invite well, I have, but the timing was...
Normally the link to the show normally follows a request for him where he asks you to subscribe to his OnlyFans. So
it's only an advice channel.
Times are tough. Got to do what you got to do to get by.
But you're a veteran as well, which is probably.
I am.
Yeah, and I assume with it being with you being Squid, that means you were in the Navy.
Wow, you're like one of the only people that's figured that out.
You've got to be.
Congratulations!
You had to be kidding me.
You deserve a popsicle or a prize or something.
That can't be true.
Surprisingly enough, Daly's the only other person who figured it out.
Interesting. So
that's every time he's in the chat, he says "Ahoy, sailor." That's my intro. Everybody else calls me calamari. It's like I don't like seafood. Stop calling me calamari. Gross.
So you're here to take part in this conversation that we're having with Rebecca. And Rebecca, in interest of full disclosure, of those of you who don't know, Rebecca and I are good friends. Okay, well, we're acquaintances. And I invited her on once before, but we invited her back on. By we, I mean I invited her back on to talk about her campaign for U.S. Oh my gosh, I'm getting all choked up.
English is hard.
Yeah, especially our English. To talk about her campaign for U.S. Senate here in Minnesota. She's running against the esteemed Amy, I like to kill small brown children in other countries, Klobuchar, and also campaigning against Royce White, who, I'll just come to my channel and watch some of the content I put out about Royce White to find out why I don't like Royce White. And Rebecca, you're the chair of the Libertarian Party in the state of Minnesota, and you've taken on running for Senate because you have 12 kids and a farm. So you're
Clearly
used to
didn't have enough to do.
You're clearly used to chaos and would probably be much better in the Senate than anybody else we could send up there. So
Quieter for sure.
yes, but no, wait a minute. No. So, but you bring a certain set of skills, as Liam Neeson likes to say. You bring a certain set of skills to this campaign, and one of those skills is your experience as a combat medic in a combat zone, not just once, but 2 different tours, and that has really motivated you to take up the mantle to run for U.S. Senate in the state of Minnesota. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what that has meant to you.
Yeah. So, and sorry, the noise of texting, like, make the elephant stop upstairs, but so far not.
It's not you anymore. Now it's Skipper keeps touching his mic and you can
moving it.
Yeah. So the state laws in Minnesota are such that when you're a minor party, you have to run statewide races every 4 years. And so we needed somebody to run the Senate race. And I got approached last October by one of the guys in our party. And he was like, I've been brainstorming, who can we get to run this race? And I at first was like, I was helping him brainstorm. And then he was like, I really think you should do this. And then I don't know. So I was like, well, I'll think about it. And then came back later and I started like thinking about the opportunities, running a race of this caliber, especially because I hadn't really paid attention, like the Senate race, nobody, especially during a presidential election year, people are focused on who's running for president and everything else just kind of gets pushed to the wayside. So when I found out it was Klobuchar though, and she has this, and then I also found out she ran initially for U.S. Senate on the criticism of the Iraq War. And then once she got into DC, she just voted to fund all of the conflicts overseas, right? So absolutely did everything the opposite of what she promised to do, like the good Democrat she is. So especially as, like you said, myself, I did 2 tours to Iraq. I was a medic for both tours from 2004 to 04, 05. I was in Ramadi. Then 06, 07, I was in Baghdad with the 2nd Infantry Division. And it was, if you know your history of the war during that time period, it was a very active couple of years, right? So, Ramadi was the middle of the Al Anbar province, the Sunni Triangle. Fallujah was, one of the cities right, just outside of it. And they were, so we were there for the Battle of Fallujah. The Marines that we were attached to, so we were attached to 2nd Marndiv and 1st Marndiv because Marines do 6-month tours and the Army does 12.
That's because the Marines need to take off their shoes to be able to count to 12, and so they figured it's easier to just give them. Never mind.
Yeah. Anyways, so, maybe if we wrote it out in crayon for them, they would understood that it would be easier to just, have that a little more uniform.
We would lick the paper.
So then my second deployment was in Baghdad, 06, 07. And so we were already in Baghdad when the surge started. I was at Camp Restamaya, which was the southern portion in the city. But anyways, the camp was right outside the city. So we did my first deployment. We had the aid station, but we also ran missions with the infantry battalions, infantry, artillery, and engineer battalions as support for them because we were the medics. And by the end of the first deployment, we were just so short on people because we'd been hit so hard that we were kind of, medics especially, were bouncing around in all the other units too. And then, I came out of both those deployments just very, I don't know. I initially, I never had faith in the system. Let's just say it, put it that way. Never had faith in the government. I was very anti-government. I was very anti-politician, especially. I was always saw the right and left for being just the uniparty, because they did unify under pushing the Iraq wars and the war on terror and the funding of all the wars. And then the rules of engagement were such that it was a lesson in futility for everybody that was on the ground, a very long, painful lesson of futility. And so, being able to like talk about these experiences, especially as the perspective of, being on the ground as a medic, watching. I mean, if the medics are involved in things that are happening, it's because everything is going as badly as it possibly could, right? So I can talk about the war from that perspective that not very many people can, especially perhaps not from the perspective of a woman being on the ground. And like, this was before, combat arms were open to females, but, this wasn't the kind of war where we had it mattered. Everybody was trained. There were no front lines. There was not we didn't have an exit strategy, so we were just glorified police state, but in Iraq. So anyways, this was being able to drive home the necessity of staying out of the foreign conflicts, because we know now, 20 years after we got into Afghanistan, we left, and what a disaster that was. And then 6 months later, we were in Ukraine and Russia, and that fight, and then Israel and Palestine, or Israel and Gaza. And where does it end? So that's the question: where does it end? Because the same people made the choice to get us to Iraq are also making the choice with Ukraine and Gaza, right? So, this gives me a platform to be able to talk about that in a way that people are listening during an election season. That's everybody's paying attention. So. That's what I'm doing.
Well, for one, Squid, one of your followers told you, "Girl, grin a little bit."
I'm sorry, I'm tired, and I'm paying attention. So it's it's.
Oh no, we don't pay attention to our guest on this show.
I do. One, I've never met her before, and two, I was deployed about the same time. So
yeah,
I'm
playing Candy Crush
and 2007. So I was Navy, so we do 6 months. But I got home in November of 2006 and then started workups for our next deployment in January of 2007 and was right back out in May and came back 4 days before Christmas. So it's been I swear, Yoda, if you say Roll Tide one more damn time, I'm gonna Roll Tide your butt out of here.
Yeah, Yoda Fed 20. I don't know what that means. You can come over to my channel. You can watch on my side. And by the way, everybody chime in if you're from my side. Say, hey, I'm from TC's, so Skipper can see people actually like me more.
Alabama plays Georgia this weekend, so he's rubbing it in that we've only won twice in 20 years.
Sounds like some sort of inter-border dispute where there's war and gunfighting. I don't. Which I'm
just football, which is about the same down here.
Oh, I get you. Squid. Oh, he said it again.
I know.
But anyway, but somebody else chip in if you have any good questions, because here's my problem is I know Rebecca so well that I know all of the questions to ask. Because I'm always I'm trying to no one responds to me, by the way. I'm supposed to be her media person, and I'm supposed to be getting all these responses, and I'm sending emails out everywhere, and Rebecca's just out doing all the work on her own, which is probably why she pays herself so well. But
I just want to know.
I have 2 good scores for her. So
okay, what? And this is going to sound deep considering I don't know you, but it's
trust me.
I and don't let me use a liberal term, but I'm going to anyway. Identify as more of a libertarian leaning person, but I find it very hard to get that third party actively, I don't know, up there and given a real shot. Do you guys do any like local races, like in local governments?
Full
Or are
disclaimer,
you,
Rebecca, I did not set this question up. I had no idea she was going to ask this.
Yeah, no, we have people running for school board and city council. We have people running for, township boards.
House.
Yeah, we have House representatives. We would have had more people running this year, but ballot access laws in Minnesota are not very friendly. And so that's been a major hurdle. So we would have more libertarians on the ballot if the state allowed it, but they don't. So that's kind of where we're at. And the reason that they don't allow it is because, having a libertarian or any third party on the ballot forces the people who are running the campaigns, running for the seats, to have to step up their game. And the two major parties don't like the competition because they like to keep capitalizing on their monopoly. That's really where we're at in politics. And so the whole system is compromised. Like, the people that are going to be the same ones making these choices to get kids, literally like kids, sent to war to die for some corporate interest in DC, are also going to be the ones making sure that third parties don't ever get on the ballot and have any kind of accessibility to actually get into the seats, because they capitalize on us not having access, because we would take away their power. That's really what it comes down to.
and I think it's complete crap that RFK Jr. got on the ballot in some states and now they won't let him off. Like, oh, talk about the corruption there.
Yeah, the whole system is compromised. And the only way that we can fight back is by not conforming to the system that they've created. I will never, ever support it does not matter how good of a candidate it is in the major parties. By running under a major party, they are conforming to the system. And they have, like, I know for a fact in Minnesota how corrupt, and like, we live in a deeply entrenched blue state. But the Republican Party in this state has absolutely no interest in actually winning these seats. All they do is fundraise and take in people's money, and then they pretend like they're running a race, and they essentially lose. Oh darn, you lost again. And then what? And then people fall for it over and over again, because only the two major parties, it's the two parties. That's the only way that we're going to exist. And third parties can't win. It's only because people can't wrap their minds around, the fear of running a race and voting outside of their norm to break the system. Yeah, it is, because that's the thing. They want you to believe that by voting for the lesser of two evils, that you're putting up some sort of defense against a greater evil. Well, look at where we are now. By supporting this, because people won't vote for the person and not the party, we're in the situation that we're in. And that's why we're here. And now in Minnesota, especially, we have absolutely nothing to lose. So, like, they have gone so far in the direction of capitalizing off their monopoly in the system that you can't say, I can't vote for third party because I'd be throwing away my vote. Voting for anybody other than a Democrat is throwing away your vote, because the Democrats always win.
That is
Now,
true.
I do have a question, because ballot access is actually a very big problem. And I don't think most Americans understand, and it's a state-by-state run type of thing. What type of challenges specifically do you see that they've put as a barrier for third parties?
So in Minnesota, and actually, I just had another podcast this morning with Senate candidates from other states. So I'll kind of go over some of their experiences too and what their hurdles are. But in Minnesota, we have parties are determined, like your status of your party, by how much of a percentage of vote you've gotten within 4 years. So if you've gotten at least 1% of a vote in a statewide race, now that's important because there's only a few races that qualify as statewide races. That's why I'm running it for U.S. Senate, because it's a statewide race. Governor would be a statewide race. Secretary of State, president, auditor there. So those are like the very few statewide races that we can have that would count towards this percentage, right? 1% were considered a minor party. In Minnesota, we have to be 8% on a statewide race to be considered a major party. If we were to get over 8%, we'd have the percentage to be a major party, but now they've put other things in line so that it's not just like the percentage for a statewide race. Now you have to have conventions in every district. You have to have like all of these like legal things that they kind of created and put into a law, and they were like, oh, now you have to do this, right? And I'm not even sure what those are because they're kind of it's just a lot. And so what's happened in Minnesota is that now that they've created this law that says you have to get 8% of a statewide race to be able to consider a major party, and to be able to have instant ballot access, that's what we have to get, is that 8% in a statewide race. Highly contested races, right? But now they've put themselves in a position where even the major parties have to follow these certain laws to maintain their major party status. And guess who also isn't following those laws? The Republican Party in Minnesota is also not following the major party laws. And so they're currently standing to potentially lose their major party status because even they're not complying to the laws. But the Democrats use their majority in both the House and the Senate and the legislative branch to be able to push this forward and to change the way that ballot access worked, which obviously hurts smaller parties more. We don't have the funding, the manpower to be able to overcome these, but they do because they're a well-oiled machine, right? Anyways, so I had to turn, because I am the chair of the state party, I also had to turn, it was like 8 people this election cycle that we couldn't get onto the ballot simply because we had to prioritize the statewide races over the more winnable and the more competitive races where we would have been able to make more of a difference, because we could not do petitioning. So for every statewide race that we run, we have to have 2,000 certified signatures on a petition and turn it into the Secretary of State. And we only get 14 days to get those for all the races that we're running. So if we're running U.S. Senate, let's say we're running a congressional district race, or we're running 2, we need 1,000 per congressional district race. We need 2,000 per statewide race. And for every House representative we run, we need 500 extra signatures. And so when you have a small party that has a limited money and the limited amount of membership, but the state says you have to run these statewide races, but you only have 2 weeks to do all this, by the way. You have to like say, okay, we've got to do this. And if we can get to this, great. But again, it's only 2 weeks. I mean, 2 weeks over a holiday weekend even. So and they did that intentionally. They knew what they were doing, but
oh yeah,
they always know what they're doing.
It's big business to keep it 2 parties, and that's what most states actually do. Now, is Minnesota a state? Because some states, very few of them, but some
it is
states.
Minnesota is not a state. It isn't a tyrannical despotism, and I just want to throw that out there.
Well, some states do allow for multiple parties to endorse the same candidate and run the same candidate.
Not in Minnesota.
Okay, so you are not one of those states. Interesting.
Nope. It's too bad too, because it would have opened up a little bit of opportunity. But no, they don't. No. And I mean, well, and the major parties wrote the law, right? So they get to just write a check for $300 and turn it in and not have to do the petitioning. That's just for us.
So bullshit. Sorry.
Hey, we do not use that kind of damn language here.
That's all. That's the only thing that's like even close to YouTube appropriate. What's going through my head right now.
This is why, like, when they're like, oh, well, third party can't, win races. Well, we can't even get people on the ballot. Like, how do we know that we can't win these races when we're literally not being allowed to get people on the ballot? Like, they're making the laws and creating arbitrary rules that keep us from being able to get on the ballot. When we have races in Minnesota that the Republicans didn't even put themselves, like, there is no competition for the Democrat at all, because there was no Republican in that district that wanted to run. But then we can't get on because of these rules. So they've created a situation where the Democrats are literally going unchallenged in across the state because of the rules they created, because of the majority they have, because they have mastered the political system in Minnesota.
Full disclosure, I'm from Wisconsin, so I know about that political BS.
You're a neighbor.
Not anymore. I live in Georgia, and there's a reason for that.
Never mind. I was going to say let's collab, but screw you.
I'm originally from Wisconsin, though. So until 2020, I lived in Wisconsin. So I know all about Minnesota's issues because Wisconsin has a lot of the same problems.
Yeah.
Putting it politically correctly, YouTube friendly.
And
the Minnesota politics is fully compromised. Like the corruption, the lack of integrity, and they do it, and they're just so open about it, you know. But who's gonna say anything? So that's the thing, is that we have a weak and mindless society that doesn't want to fight back, and that's where we're at.
And that's I see that so many times. Every 4 years, ballot access comes up. Most Americans don't understand it. In fact,
the major parties don't even understand it.
When Trump lost in 2020, I had a lot of people coming to me and saying he should make a MAGA party, and I was like, "Oh, that's a horrible idea," because getting on the ballot.
A lot of reasons.
I mean, with the Libertarian Party, a lot of the hard work has already been done nationally. But to start a new party and to try to take that fight on in all 50 states takes so much money and so much organizations. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, you have to have a pretty massive network. And so the Libertarian Party has existed since the 1970s. You know, and the ballot access laws I don't think were quite as strict as they are now in the 1970s. I think that really started in the 90s. And I'm trying to remember, who was it that pulled like, who was it? It was a Clinton. It was a Clinton race. Was it Ross Perot? No, it was somebody else. Anyways, and that's when the ballot access laws started to change to keep.
Well, don't ask, and then when I give you the answer, tell me no.
I don't remember. I don't think it was Ross Perot, but and it was somebody.
Everybody says Ross Perot cost Bush the election.
Well, I mean, in a tightly contested race, it only takes a couple of percentage, right? But no, and there was somebody in the 90s that polled much higher than typical for a third party.
Ross Perot, Pat Buchanan were probably the two biggest ones in the 90s that, in terms of third party runs. Now, if we're talking the 1980s, John Anderson, he made a third party challenge.
I can't remember what the percentage was, but maybe it was Ross Perot because he got 18%.
If I didn't know that you had kids upstairs running around right now, I'd be really creeped out for you.
I did. I tried to.
No, I'm not saying that as a critique. It just I'm thinking of all the times I've been sitting in my own house and there's steps moving around upstairs, and there's no one here but me. That just.
Yeah.
And that's a fairly new thing, too, because third parties used to run very routinely in the early 20th century and get a significant portion of the vote, like 10, 15%, pretty regularly. The Communist Party of the United States, surprisingly, did very well under Eugene Debs, who ran several times for president.
Once from prison.
Yep, once for prison, as we've covered here when they were talking about throwing Trump in prison and saying it would be a justification to throw him off the ballot. But it's like, nope, there's already precedent. Really.
There's precedent. Like, we can go back.
Oh. Yeah, I know that from what, I haven't been active in politics. Like my arc into where I am now happened very quickly. So just full disclosure. So there's a lot of stuff about like the history of the Libertarian Party and third parties that I'm still learning. But I've been told repeatedly that it was because of the third party successes through the 90s is why that we have the ballot access laws like they are now. And that's when they really started cracking down. Ironically, when we went to testify against them changing ballot access laws in 23, one of the things that they said to justify their making it harder for third parties in Minnesota was because they didn't want anybody to just be able to get on the ballot and just be able to, do whatever. And they specifically said they didn't want anything funny happening on the ballot. So, by the way, in Congressional District 2 in Minnesota, there is some random guy that got approached by people on social media that he's never met in person. He never even spoke to them. He communicated only strictly through text messages. They paid petitioners to get him onto the ballot in Minnesota and for him to run in Congressional District 2, that's a highly contested race. And they asked him if he wanted to run as a constitutional conservative in CD2. So the problem is that, and he was like, oh yeah, sure, I'm a constitutional conservative. I'll run in Congressional District 2. These people that he never met, he never spoke to in person, you know who they are? They are major Democrat people who finance Democrats. They're literally connected to, is it actblue.com?
Mm-hmm.
Their ActBlue paid them to pay him to get him onto the ballot to run as a constitutional conservative. He is fully financed by Democrats, but he's running as a constitutional conservative. Has no connection to any sort of party, no connection to anybody in politics. He's never been involved in politics.
Just to siphon off some votes.
Just to siphon off votes. And so, oftentimes when the Democrats say, well, we don't want this to happen, they make laws to keep it from happening. But then, they're the ones doing that because they have the money. And that's what it comes down to. They paid him thousands and thousands of dollars to get onto the ballot and are fully financing his campaign to run as a constitutional conservative.
Good God. Angry Vet says he's writing himself in for president. Folks, if you want to live under tyranny, Angry Vet will have us all. It would be requirement that in the morning we would get up and we would face Maryland and all have to scream, "Wazza!"
It's tyranny or anarchy. No, nowhere in between. You look like you got something to say.
I vote chaos.
Me too.
I want to scroll down here. Somebody had made Andrew Sitzky appears to be watching from my channel, and he says, "Can we get a 4-panel vote on if tampon in boys' bathrooms?" It keeps disappearing. In boys' bathrooms makes sense. No one here. I can speak for everyone that no one here thinks that makes any sense. I don't understand the gist of the question, though. I didn't.
My pronouns are Coors and Light.
Mine are F and U.
Mine are obvious.
Wow.
I'm really glad to have you on because I think this is an important thing that a lot of people don't understand. And there's also different things that will happen in a lot of different states. For instance, when you do turn in those signatures, sometimes you'll get the parties who want to challenge those individual signatures. And now you have a legal battle of just trying to defend someone who was at a mall or something and signed a piece of paper as to whether or not they are eligible to sign that form.
Yeah, so all the signatures on the petitions are public. Anybody can pay or just email the Secretary of State to get those petitions. And then they can go over them with a fine-tooth comb if they want to. The Democrats in this spring did sue we had 2 marijuana parties in Minnesota who both had gotten major party status when the laws for major party status were at 5% of the vote, and they had gotten that. And the Secretary of State certified them being major parties, even though the law had changed. When the law said that it was 5%, they got the 5%. And so, but the Democrats then turned around and sued because they were like, but the law says you have to have 8%. But they're the ones that changed the law to 8%, you know? So they were like using the law as a weapon against major parties who had gotten major party status when the law, at the time of, you know, when the law was 5%. Won the lawsuit because not only is the legislative branch lost in Minnesota, but also the judicial branch is also lost. So on a ballot, you know, when you say, oh, these judges, they're up for re-election, a lot of them don't have anybody even competing with them. All those have been appointed by the governor, who is, I mean, it's Tim Walz, for goodness sakes. Like, you know where that goes, you know? So, and then they took away the major party status and the ballot access for the marijuana parties in Minnesota just a week. It was like a week or two before the petitioning window opened to be able to get onto the ballot, not giving them any time whatsoever to be able to come up with an alternative plan if they had even considered it. So
nothing intentional about that at all.
yeah,
That's
and
purely coincidence.
how far do we have to go to see that our, you know, we're supposedly free? I mean, this isn't freedom. This is pseudo freedom. This isn't even like, well, they're not even pretending that that you're free to be able to vote your conscience. It's a complete violation of the First Amendment to not be able to vote for somebody that you can not just feel completely you know, what's the word? Just disgusted by. Like, why do you have to decide I like this person less to vote for them? Because these are the only options they'll allow you. You can't exercise your First Amendment rights if you cannot look at somebody on the ballot and say, this is who I most closely align with because I like them, not because I dislike them less.
What do you think is the hardest thing about being the chair of what I would call a major third party?
Yeah. Man.
All the autistic people.
Yeah.
Like you? Like you, TC?
Don't insult autistic people.
Wow. Squid just got a left field ripping on me for the first time.
I got to get my kicks in where I can.
There's a lot to do. We have a lot of challenges. There's you know, like we're looking at, and I fully believe that in my lifetime that we're looking at complete economic collapse in our country because of the debt, because of the dysfunction, because of the corruption at every level of government. This isn't something that's going to just go away. Like, if you've studied any era of human history, you know how this ends. It always ends the same. That's where we're headed. And this is, nobody wants to talk about it. You know, so like being part of a party, especially like the Libertarian Party, which here's a lot of, I don't know, maybe misinformation is not the right word because it's late and I'm having trouble with words. But misunderstanding of the Libertarian Party was that we weren't initially organized or formed to win elections. That was never the goal. The goal was an avenue for social change. That by being honest and being forthright and being bold in what you had to say was going to turn people off. By winning the seats to be able to get into the you know, to win the campaigns, you do have to compromise. And we see that all the time with the Republicans and the Democrats. For instance, Amy Klobuchar said that she was no more wars, no more funding, no more of this kind of stuff. And then what she do is she gets into the office. She didn't say those things because she believed in them. She said those things because that's what would get her elected at the time of which she said it. We were at the height of the Iraq War, right? An unpopular war where a lot of people were dying. So I'm not going to go into this, and many libertarians are not going to go into this and pull their punches. We're going to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And so our biggest challenge is that doesn't make you that doesn't make you popular in a lot of circles, because nobody wants a truth teller amongst them, because people don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't want to be told that they have to be potentially willing to sacrifice their comforts and luxuries in life, because we have to be able to pass on a government that's functional and honest, not corrupted. And for us to pass on a government that's not corrupted, there's going to be a lot of people that need to stand up and make themselves enemies of the state. And that's where we're at. That's not a message people want to hear, though.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, how do you suppose that we tell people in a way that's not going to... It's hard to say. Like, I understand where you're coming from with making them uncomfortable, but how do you think we can get the word out without making people too uncomfortable? Because I'm the master at making people uncomfortable. Like, I'll tell you like it is, and I really don't care. But
what do you mean by what is it that you're asking, Squid? That I feel so weird calling you Squid. What is it? What are you asking when you say that about making people uncomfortable when we tell them things? What things are you in particular are you referring to?
Well, the truth. Some things we can't talk about on YouTube, like 2020. The things that the government and everybody believes, but when you tell them the truth about things, they either one, get uncomfortable, or two, tell you you're lying and you're a conspiracy theorist and you're this and you're that. What's the best way that we can talk to people without having them name call us or categorize us as certain things?
Well, I like, from my perspective, like, doing what I've been doing for the number of years that I've been doing it, even before I launched my show, like, that's just Rebecca, I know you saw the comment, didn't you?
Yeah. There's some people you're not going to convince, and you've got to be very okay with that.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
And that's the thing too, is like, you don't even know sometimes that the person that you think you're trying to have the conversation with and you're trying to convince isn't even the target of the comment, isn't the target of the dialectic in that moment. Sometimes the person that you're trying to convince is the person you don't even know is listening. And so, you, like, I have a coworker who started following me through my podcast, who up until probably a year and a half or 2 years ago was a dyed-in-the-wool, like, back to blue at all costs, government. You know, I don't like paying taxes, but government is out here to watch out for us. And that guy has become, he's like cage stage libertarian right now. Like, and I didn't even know that he was paying attention to anything that I was saying.
I would say sorry, terrible habit of interrupting.
Let me finish this thought, Madam Chair. Inside joke. What the most recent thing with that same individual was after October 7th of 2023, and Skipper and I have had much of the same conversations and heated back and forth, and Skipper has changed some in his perspective on some of the things that are happening in the Middle East right now. Skipper would agree that some of what he believes has changed to a degree, and I've mellowed a little, not a lot. That same individual.
It's not Plaid Girl, by the way. It's Rebecca. I mean, if you want me to spell it out for you, I can do that too. That same
individual was was all on board with Israel bombing the living crap out of Palestine. And he and I had some really heated arguments, but I had somebody else who, unbeknownst to me, was paying attention to our in-person conversation and came up and said, I never thought about those things, those points that you were making at all. I never thought about those points. I didn't know they were paying attention. And it was his conversation, that individual, and his conversations with this other individual that helped that other individual that I'm referring to. These two people are both now going, wait a minute, what the hell is going on in the Middle East? This, like, at some point, this is all wrong. So I don't know who Andrew Sidsky is, but I don't understand what his 3-card Monty references to. What? 3-card Monty with who needs what? I don't get it. I don't. Wow. Must be somebody.
Well,
Yeah. Anyways, I guess you're not a fan and you're not gonna vote for me. I'm hurt, but I'll get over it.
I started doing a political stream every Thursday night a couple of months ago. And I've come at it from like, everybody sucks. Like, let's see who sucks less. Like,
welcome to libertarianism.
Well, it was kind of the point of, I was deconstructing, like last time I did it, because I've taken a couple of weeks off trial streaming and stuff. But last week I did, I deconstructed political ads and we fact checked them, or we provided context. And then one time I took the same topic and I took, I think 3, maybe 4 different sources and looked at how they phrased things, what they told you, and what they didn't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you can't just read one thing and take it as fact. You have to read between the lines and figure out, what are they not telling you? What are they distracting you from? And like, one of the people in my chat, he watched the RNC with me. He is a 24-year-old Democrat from DC. Someone you would like, the token Democrat voter, to say. What the Democrats thinks is their token voter. Let's put it that way. And he sat and watched it with me and was like open-minded and had a discussion. And it was like, holy crap, you're not supposed to do that. Like, and now I'm trying to get other people who are like his demographic to talk to me and just like open up. But some people are great. And then some people are like, you suck. And it's like, I'm just going to keep talking and see what happens.
I don't even remember what the question was at this point. Sorry.
Like, if you don't like my channel, it's like, go find somebody else's. There's plenty of them. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I think what she was referring to is, what do we say to, like, how do we approach these issues without alienating people, basically? Like, how do we start to change minds?
I think the best advice that I have is that people are going to hear what you say and maybe they'll listen, but really what they're going to pay attention to is who you are, how you live your life. The words are very superficial. Anybody can say the words, but what's really going to matter to people is that your proof of authenticity is how you live your life, and whether or not what you say is true is how you respond to it, and you live out that truth, right? So my purpose, I guess the way that I have, brought people into the fold, I guess is what I would say, is simply just by being, not saying what is true, making sure that and like when you're in a situation where you need to speak, something that's people don't want to hear, but that is true. And you need to constantly kind of deal with that in your own, make sure that what you are saying is true. And so that leads to consistency, and that consistency leads to authenticity. And that's what people are looking for, because that's what weeds out people different from being corruptible versus people being full of integrity. And so don't look at somebody like just what they're saying. Don't you hear what I'm saying tonight? Don't listen to what my words are. Like, dig into me. I'm not going to be afraid of what you find at all. Because I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to hide. And anybody that is in that position won't be trying to cover up who they are. So that's how I approach people. That's how I talk to people. You hear the words, but really look at what we're doing and judge us by that. Judge us by our actions.
Now, I do want to ask you about your candidacy, because obviously working on getting ballot access, those type of things, those are all to do with being a chair. But now you're actually running as a candidate. What is the hardest thing about running, and what type of things do you think people should know about, those who want to run for office?
Oh, it's a lot of work. And I've already had kind of come to terms with that. This is just kind of a starting point. I think in the Libertarian, a lot of small parties have a very high burnout rate of people because there is so much work to do. The hurdles are so big. The challenges are so big. And then, when you run a race like this, there's not a lot of people jumping in to help you. So, I mean, I have a couple of people that have stuck it out, but it's a very small handful of people. So a lot of like the groundwork, the day-to-day kinds of things, they really fall on you as a candidate to be able to get those done. And I have a list of emails that people are like, I want you to fill out this survey and do all this. I'm like, you can't do it all. And you got to be okay with not doing it all. That I just figure at some point that, maybe the right people will hear what I have to say. And we're not running just a Senate campaign, but we're trying to keep a movement alive through this campaign. We're trying to build the momentum. Someday I'm going to need to pass this torch on to somebody else. And so I won't have anything to pass on if I don't keep alive what we're doing. So that's my goal with the campaign. But the challenges of running it are, you gotta, it was a lot easier for me to say, okay, I'll do this. But now that we're in the end of September and, we're going until Election Day in November, there's a lot to do. And especially for a statewide race, it can feel, and I've called TC about this before and just be like, this is so huge. Like the responsibility of what's happening and what I'm doing right now is so big. And I don't really like mentally trying to, keep your mind wrapped around that, but what keeps me going is, but what if something, the right person, or what if we have, all the cards align or any of that kind of stuff.
Well, there's always those October surprises, and
you just never know. I do know what'll happen if I'm unavailable, and it'll be that we miss the opportunities, right? So that's kind of, you're not going to know what you're getting yourself into until you're in the middle of it, until you're really in the ninth hour. But I would tell people, anybody that wants to run, also don't be afraid. I looked at it as if I didn't take this opportunity, I was always going to live with the what ifs and not know. So I was like, well, I'll just run it and we'll do the best we can and see what happens, and that's kind of where we're at.
I think that
you miss 99% of the shots you don't take. Michael Scott.
Yep.
How do you balance running a Senate campaign, doing everything you have to do to keep the Libertarian Party afloat, and your family and a farm?
Well, she's got a good support team in the Libertarian Party. So we have party wide. I do have quite a few people. Yeah.
that I can just call, and they're doing a lot of jobs. So we have an outreach division, we have a political division, we have now it's kind of, there's more than that. We have a communications division and an IT division. All their jobs, like that's kind of on, that's on them. So they're working that's their responsibility. So we are well organized in that our structure, those things are happening. Whether I'm telling people, like I don't have to sit at the top and be like, you do this next, you do this next, because they're doing themselves.
It's like herding cats. You can't tell anybody in this party what to do, because and
that's, if we can keep people going in the right direction, and with a sense of, we have a common enemy and we're unified behind that, and that's the state. We have a lot of differences, and that can be detrimental to a political party when you have a lot of differences you have to work through. But I think that the team that we have currently in the group, despite our differences, and there's arguments, there's still times where we're going to disagree, but we're still able to move forward, and to be able to get things done, because we have people that can put priorities before their own self, and that's what you have to do. But they're doing great, and they're in a bunch of nonconformist individuals, and anytime we can get that many people all working together well, I see as a major bonus. So
can I interrupt for just a second? The Angry Vet gifted 50 Squid Pro Quo memberships. 50. Thank you. I didn't even know that was possible.
For those,
we know who Tav likes the most in this chat right now. Tav, really, Tav.
For those of you who saw my thing out earlier supporting the Angry Vet, because he's in a battle with his local the local state. They have put him on trial, convicted him, denied him a proper defense, and I put out a YouTube short earlier today, as well as AVA. Call his congressman. Let's all work, show them that, hey, we are on his side, and we will do our best to hold government accountable. But we have to turn up the pressure on the authorities there in Maryland, because you see the type of guy that the Angry Vet is. He is this generous and this giving.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about in my drive time dialectic this morning. He just pops into people's channels and just gives memberships. He's done that to me numerous times. So this is why guys like Tav are so important, and it gets me all emotional, because he's got enough going on, and yet here he is doing this right now. I mean, and this is why the gift memberships are still rolling in. I'm over here.
I know. I'm just watching it. Like, is it going to stop? Like, wow.
This is why we like it when Tav watches our stuff when he's well medicated. By the way.
Medication's always important.
But yeah, this is why supporting him, and I know that Rebecca can relate to this. I know that Skipper, I know you can relate to this. Squid, I don't know what your battle's been like with the VA. I watch all this other crap that's going on with everybody in the VA, and I just don't want to get involved, because, as I said in my drive time dialectic stream this morning on my way in to work, I'm like, I would get arrested immediately, because I'm just gonna, like, the first time I ever walk into a VA clinic, I'm just gonna have my camera out and going, because of all the crap that happens, and they're gonna just see me coming from a mile away. But Rebecca's had struggles, and not just Rebecca, but Rebecca's significant other, her other half, her husband. He's had his struggles. Skipper's had struggles. Taz had struggles. AVA's had struggles.
Would you like my Would you like my 30-second to a minute like elevator speech on my
just 30
issues with the
seconds
VA?
is all. 30 seconds is all I can handle.
So-
I'm.
I'm 90% service connected. I was 80. I had migraines really bad. I had pain really bad. I had an MRI and they found a Chiari malformation, and the radiologist wanted to see more. I worked at a hospital. I worked on acute care. I know when a radiologist wants to see more images, there's a reason. So I asked for it. They said we'd talk about it at my next appointment. My next appointment was 6 days before Christmas. And y'all know the VA doesn't do shit 6 days before Christmas. So I filed a formal complaint. And then all of a sudden they started doing what I wanted. And it's like, no. I work at a hospital. I work at the largest hospital in the state of Wisconsin. I know how this is supposed to work. This is just a courtesy. You're fired. I'm a very upfront person, and I'm not going to go behind your back. I'm just letting you know that you're fired. The head of neurology gets my file, calls me in to his office on a Tuesday morning, and says, I think I know what's wrong with you, and the only thing that can fix you is brain surgery. I had to file a formal complaint that the only thing that could help my pain and my headache was brain surgery. It proves that I have one, but like that's my issue with the VA. And then I went from 80 to 90 after having brain surgery. They won't give me that 100%. Absolutely, Bruce.
And that's the thing, is every single person that I personally talk to has had these godforsaken struggles to the point where we now have people literally being arrested.
Oh, and trying to get follow-up care when you move states is like, you think staying in one state and dealing with the VA is bad. Dealing with the VA in 2 different states sucks worse.
And speaking of veterans who struggle, and we do have our very own a Veterans Affair Media in the chat. This is an article about him. I just sent it to him. It just went live not too long ago. But it's about him and his struggle with TBI, but also with his local VA. So I will be pushing that out if we could drop it in the chat so people can take a look. But I'll be pushing it out on my social media so that you can all read it and read about Kahanu and his struggle and how they've just straight up harassed this man who badly needs care, all because they just don't like his opinions. And he was stalked by his doctor, who went through his Facebook page and labeled him a threat. Why? Because he played airsoft.
Wait, I don't know the story well enough to be able to know what's going on. So you're gonna. So
AVA, he's one of our moderators of Veterans Affair Media. You'll see some of his stuff. I wrote this article with him because what's been happening is he has TBI. He was in patient care, and they essentially just locked them up. He called family and whatnot. That got the VA really mad because it was an abusive situation. So he got out of that. Then his primary care manager started going through his Facebook account, just looking for anything that she could find. She found out that he plays airsoft in his free time, and then labeled him a threat based upon that. And ever since then, he's had barrier after barrier towards getting care. Even his congressman, who is in the Sacramento area, Amy Barra, even his office has been hostile to him. So he's actually started protesting his government. And yeah, they denied him from a government building because they told him his sign was too big.
And that's
nothing surprises me about the VA.
But that article is up, so people will be able to check it out.
What's interesting is I was a student at the VA for 8 weeks. I did one of my level 2s there, and they talk about respect, but yet I had one of the PT supervisors disrespect me to my face as a student. even though I had that little tag that says veteran on it, she like, you talk about respect, but it's all talk. It's one of those words don't matter, actions do. It's like, I
You know,
just,
Dennis Thrush just commented, I've been, how did he say it? I've
Here.
been going to Dallas VA for over 20 years and have not had any serious problems. They have even sent me to UT Southwestern for eye treatment. Like, Dennis, I don't want to take away from your experience. Good. I'm like glad that you're getting it. But we need your voice, not to talk about how good your experiences are.
and it's also,
We'd love to have your support in exposing and helping us get all of these people that are having all these bad experiences, some remediation for what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Skipper got screwed out of a day, just for eyeglasses. Like he had to take time off from work for
I drove
eyeglasses.
90 miles.
And that may
Well,
sound
that's like for us, that's what we always have to do. That's the closest VA is 3 hours away. Well, we have one in town and we have a hospital in town. We have like a little, a Band-Aid shop, basically. VA is what I would call it. And if we want any, if the VA wants to test your hearing, we have to drive 3 hours into North Dakota because that's the closest VA hospital, which, I mean, that takes your entire day. And they're supposed to pay you for it, but it's not what you would make at work. Even if you took off an hour or two to be able to go get the care you need. And they I don't know. I think last time I was on this, it was because of what my husband was going through with the VA. And they really, he had a back injury from when he was in the Army, which he was infantry. So, like all the rucking and that kind of stuff. He was a drill sergeant. He hurt his back. I mean, I don't think anybody that's in the Army for any length amount of time almost always comes out with some sort of back problems. And
I jumped out of airplanes. I don't have a back.
yeah, your spine is just gone. So he heard it, and it was during a time when we were self-employed. And when I told him, I was like, you need to go get seen, and take this seriously. So anyways, he went and got seen, and they were like, well, we can get you an MRI. And the MRI was a month later. And then he didn't get the results for another month after that. And of course, be able to do any of that, he had to go to Fargo to get care. And we, like I said, we live in Norman, so that's 3 hours away. Every single time there was an appointment. And so it's 4 months in. It was something like 4 months in. By the time he finally got the MRI, got the results, got the appointment to hear the results, we were months into this, find out he's got a severely herniated, not just in one place, but 2 places in his lower back, severely herniated discs. And because we have a farm and we were outside working one day during the summer, I looked at him, I was like, what is wrong? You could just see his whole demeanor was off. And he was like, I can't take it anymore. I can't sleep. I can't relax. I can't sit. I can't work. All because of this back injury that was supposedly service related. And the only thing that the VA would do was offer him surgery to get it fixed. But the closest neurosurgeon appointment we could get was 9 months later. And in the meantime, because of the war on drugs, the only thing that they're giving him for pain is Motrin and naproxen. That was it. And he's not sleeping. He's not working. They're not offering anything for him to, be able to alleviate this pain. And I called the VA because I was just like, that's it. I'm jumping in. I was letting you handle this. I'm jumping in. And I called the VA on his behalf, and they were like, oh, well, if he's suicidal, we have a suicide hotline. And I was like, he wouldn't be suicidal if you guys would take this seriously. That's where we're at. If you guys would give him something for pain, if he could have access to the actual care he needs, not just back surgery, which isn't a small thing. It took something that he had an injury, but it took it to such an extreme because of their negligence that by the time it was over, I was like, if I lose my husband over this, where you guys aren't taking this seriously, I'm just gonna just burn the whole thing down. That's where I'm at. Like, I need you to take this seriously.
Yeah.
And but they were
they push you to where you have to take it to an extreme to get any type of care, and then in cases like Kahanu or AVA, then they become antagonistic towards you.
Right. Yeah. And that was the thing. Like, so when I called the VA, they were just like, well, we'll send this to a nurse. They have 48 hours to respond. That was a Thursday afternoon. So guess who we didn't even hear from until like 4 days later. And I was like, and they were like, but we can get you to the suicide hotline immediately. I don't know how to explain this any more clearly. If he had something for pain, he could get some sleep, maybe something to help him relax, something to get through this, and expecting somebody to just not, I don't know. Anyways, it was, I've trained my VA doctor well enough to where when she walks in, she's like, so I'm just not going to ask you about that. I guess we probably don't want to talk about that. And she just, because she knows, like, I'm just like, nope, this, so.
There it is. Eric Miller just said it. In my case as well, behavior letter. And that's all they have to do is they throw that behavior letter in your file and it's done. You're done. And that's what they've done to AVA. I guarantee you, I haven't heard it directly from TAV, but that's what I can almost guarantee you they did it with TAV. I'm surprised Skipper hasn't gotten one. Blind Justice, he has one.
Oh yeah,
all the crap that they put him through. And
so, I had to call my congressman when I was pregnant to get the VA to do something. So, because they send you out, because the VA is all I have right now. So they send you out, obviously, because the VA can't do prenatal. So they send you to, but they send you to community care, and community care has to send out that referral. I was 18 weeks before I saw my OB. 18 weeks.
So, okay, this question, it's a little bit of inside baseball with me and Yoda, because there is a situation out there about the Direct Express program. I believe it was Chase Bank was giving out this credit card specifically to veterans and then screwing them over. And it's a big lawsuit case, and the question is, how can she make sure that so this is for you, Rebecca, how would you make sure that the treasurer and the OIG would make sure that the Direct Express program will hold the contract holder to be held accountable and follow the law with do I have the second half of it? I'm sorry, Yoda, I don't have the second half of your question. Oh, accountable to follow the law when they know fraud is being done. So the VA knew about this program through, I believe, Chase Bank, where they were putting out these credit cards and whatnot and screwing veterans over with just exorbitant fees and stuff like that. What would you do to hold them accountable?
Well, I think that anybody that does something, along that shouldn't be immune from lawsuits. That's really where, if somebody, so in the United States and the government, and maybe this applies to banks, but I know it applies to the VA, is that they qualified immunity, and that's why it's so hard to find accountability when people make these piss poor decisions, is because you can't turn around and sue somebody. So at the very least, if somebody's doing something like that, they should lose their jobs and then have to turn around and compensate anybody that they hurt. I mean, I just think that's very basic. So.
And apparently it was Comerica Bank, not Chase Bank. I knew it began with a C. I've read a little bit about it because Yoda's been sending me stuff, but I'm not fully in on it yet. We're getting there.
I have all the documents. I just have not had the time to read them.
We
I know how
we
you guys feel. You should see my email inbox on a daily basis.
well, there's hot singles in your area.
No, that's none of them. I don't get those. I get all the help me with my story. Oh, and some I'm just like I'm digging and I'm one man, people. I'm just one person. So then I do this. So then I do this show with Skipper.
There are not enough hours in the day to do everything. And when I have the time, I don't have the energy.
And that's the other thing. Like for people who I know there's because there's people that come at me and they're like, oh, why aren't you doing my story? When it's things that we have to dig into, especially when it involves government, government moves at the speed of a really slow snail. And
that's why it should just be abolished.
Yeah. I request, I do lots of FOIA requests, open records requests, but, I would say about 50% of them are returned on time, but I've never had one that was returned on time and what I would call adequate. I always have to appeal and ask for more information.
Yeah.
I'll give you guys an example. I did a stream, another drive time dialect. I did 2 drive time dialectics today, and I was talking about my. I have a researcher that's digging into another court case that for an individual who's run afoul of the system, and he just went to trial last week and is facing 10 years in prison for trying to expose predators of a particular type and
Predators,
yes, and his trial ended on Friday, and my researcher reached out to the county district or to the district court for the transcripts of the trial, and they waited until the end of the day Monday to call her back and tell her that it was going to be $7,500 for the transcripts. $7,500. So for those who reach out to people like Squid, for those that reach out to people like Skipper or I, understand that when you're asking us to dig into something, I don't know about Squid, and I know Rebecca is just massively wealthy up there on her with her 1,400
vast
children.
estate.
I had $1 million, but we spent it on a farm. So no, I'm just kidding. I never actually had $1 million.
I'm a stay-at-home mom who lives off my 90% check every month.
It's not easy because we want to help, but it's just cost prohibitive a lot of times to do a lot of the things that we want to even, like we want to invest time in.
See, and all those documents should be free. Like you shouldn't have to pay anything because the government should be automatically transparent. And so if there's any barrier in the way, that should just be taken down completely.
And that's why I always say transparency first, accountability follows. The more transparent you can make your government, the better, people.
Yeah.
The only thing I have had problems with documents is Florida.
I'm fortunate because California is very open. I will say that they're very open. It's one of the few things I will actually commend California on. They're not as open as Florida, but they are very open.
That's actually surprising to me. But I have negative.
Well, California just doesn't expect their people to ask any questions, so they could just.
There we go.
The hippies did something right.
Touche.
We've been at this now for almost an hour and a half. So Rebecca, I know where you're headed with all of this, but as you and I have talked about personally, it's a long shot going forward, even into November and beyond. But when you think about the history of the duopoly, when you think about the history of the uniparty and everything that it's been doing, let's just go for the last 100 years.
Mhm.
And because that's really a century worth of corruption and burgeoning tyranny is enough. Do you see the movement of people towards third parties and minor parties expanding, or do you think it's just going to lose? People are going to lose hope and just go back to holding their noses the way they have been for the last.
I can't see the future,
20 No,
but
I didn't I didn't ask you to see the future. I'm asking
Right.
for your educated response.
I say that, you know, for something like this, go back to studying what has already happened, because absolutely nothing new that humanity is dealing with today is, or absolutely nothing humanity is dealing with today is something new. So all generations always have the same problems. It's just our turn, and we have to decide what to do with it. So I know that where I stand and what my position is, and regardless of what anybody thinks, like, nobody's going to convince me that I'm wrong. And I hope that other people, you know, maybe will hear what I have to say. And it doesn't even need to be a large group of people. It just needs to be, you know, a small, unified, dedicated group of people to make generational change in a positive direction. And, you know, and that change is going to go good or bad, but I want it to go in a good way, you know. So the people that, you know, the saying evil never sleeps is true. You know, the people that are going to use their power and position and use it to hurt people, that's always going to be our challenge, and that's what we have to stand against. So I hope that in the future that it will go towards more liberty, whether that's through third parties or whether that's through another avenue. It matters very little to me, as long as it's heading towards a freer population, and not just the United States, but everywhere. Like, I want that for everybody. It's just the United States is where I live, you know, and we have this pesky thing called a constitution that is supposed to keep government in check. So, you know, I probably didn't even answer your question very well, but I hope that it does. And I hope that what we're doing now matters. But whether it's through third parties, I think that a little diversity on the ballot is only going to be a net positive. So
I was just thinking of that. You using the word diversity, you should throw their own language against them.
Oh yeah, I love that. Like, I got a chance to testify in front of the House of Representatives in Minnesota against their ballot access laws. And I don't remember exactly what I said and how I said it, but it was along the lines of that, you know, for a political party that claims to be defending democracy and supporting diversity and inclusion and all these kinds of things, they sure are working really hard at keeping people off the ballot in the name of defending democracy and diversity. I was like, that's not actually how this works. And then I might have threatened to tar and feather them if they acted like the tyrants they are, but I didn't get thrown in jail, so that's part of it.
Little miracles.
we have just in my little town of 2,700 people, we have had I went and addressed the city council at the beginning of September, their one monthly meeting, because our mayor of tiny little Spring Valley, Minnesota, issued literally proclamations to the effect that write-in candidates were not a formal part of the democratic process, and they were not allowed to take part in any forums, any candidate forums, debates, or meet and greets in any location within the city limits of Spring Valley, even private organizations setting that up. Literally issued that as a proclamation. in the city of Spring Valley. That, folks, tells you everything you need to know about the duopoly and the two-party system that is supposedly nonpartisan position as the mayor of small town Spring Valley eliminated write-in candidates because they're not true members of the democratic process. I'm like, how much more democratic and process can you get than a grassroots movement to put a write-in candidate on a ballot in a small town in hopes of getting them onto the city council? I mean, that's how far we've fallen. That's exactly the problem, and that's why I hope that parties like the Libertarian Party and others, even if I don't necessarily care for their politics, will actually start to have a voice, because it's just gotten that bad. I do want to address Juggalass has told me that my
Yeah,
rule.
I was going to ask you if I could. We should talk about that.
Juggalass has told me my rules are too hard.
He also said the Constitution does not keep the government in check; the people do. And how do the people keep the government in check? Constitution.
I think Jugs. I don't think Jugs is disputing you, having interacted with Jugs 1,000 times.
Okay.
Since he joined the channel, I think what he's saying is that in Jugs, if I'm wrong, correct me, is that that's really where we look to for our support in holding government accountable and keeping government in check. And the people lean on it, and the government just walks in and says, "Oh no, that's not valid."
Well, it's like a restraining order. Like, that's what the Constitution is. It's a restraint. It is just a piece of paper, but it is only as beneficial as you use it. So you have to do things to support it and keep it legitimate.
Yeah. So I think you're both right that the Constitution is where the people lean. The people lean on the Constitution to say, no, look, we have these things right here that we said that you guys could do, but you don't. Like, we're giving you that authority. we're not even giving you authority. We're just going to give you permission to keep the roads clean. That's what.
Even that's disputable. I've seen the roads in Minnesota.
But really, ultimately, this is about us. This is we have to do that. And that's why you lean on the First Amendment. You lean on the Second Amendment. You lean on the Fourth and the Fifth and the 10th. You lean on those things because you guys agreed to these things a while ago and you don't honor them. So we, the people, are just going to go.
It's not even about agreeing to them. Nobody gets to agree to them because they're inherent rights. These were granted to us simply by the Creator, just by you being human, you get these. Nobody gets to give them to you, just like nobody gets to take them away. They're just yours.
We're using too big of philosophical concepts for the Marine in the room.
I could write it in crayon.
No, I've got people messaging me. I'm trying not to be distracted.
Does colored pencil taste as good as crayon for you? Because I got a lot of those.
Those give splinters.
Fair. It's easier to clean colored pencil off of my table and my walls than it is crayon. So.
Well, you should probably not let the other adults in your house use them.
Can I answer this question? What does the candidate see as a positive path forward for this country? I would say ending the corporate interest and the foreign wars, the military-industrial complex. If I could push the button and end that myself, I would do whatever it took. That would be the greatest honor of my life. So ending the foreign wars, and I'm not saying the United States shouldn't defend itself if it's been attacked, but we're not being attacked. And then the taking back the government overreach and deregulating the system and making it so that there weren't these horrible barriers for small businesses to thrive in the United States, right? So the corporate interests have infiltrated DC at every single level, and getting that out. That would be my goal. And whether it's war or whether it's industry or whatever it is, we live currently in a fascist state because that's who controls DC it's the corporations. It's not the people.
AT1.
Well, should we start wrapping things up?
She is running for the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
U.S. Senate, so everybody's aware. And it's not by it's not by desire. They make you do that. You have to run. Like you missed the beginning. You have to in Minnesota. You have to run a candidate for a statewide office to keep your major or your minor party status. And
Yep.
if you don't, you lose minor party status, which then makes ballot access impossible. So the next time the Democrats and the Republicans tell you that they're all about democracy, tell them to shove it up their ass because they're not. They're
Rebecca,
not.
for 2028, may I suggest Todd Pearson for Secretary of State?
No, definitely not.
Well, our Secretary of State is up in 26, actually, so you only have.
Yes, then 2028, perfect.
Yeah. But maybe you'll be willing to stick on for a while, and we'll build those lists of contacts of people. And 2 years from now,
I'm good at what I do, and I'm going to stay where I am doing it. Squid, what's that?
Do you mean like this? So the question that just popped up: do you feel that the Goliath is too ingrained for this to happen? Do you mean like it's too big to fail? Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Or too big to fight?
Well, it's not too big to fight. You just might. You can fight anything.
If we want to use the phrase, do you feel that Goliath is too ingrained for this to happen? I'm like, if you want to use the phrase Goliath or the name Goliath, then I mean, David took Goliath down with a rock and then cut his head off. So I mean, metaphor in the metaphor that you're using, I don't know that anything's too big.
All giants fall eventually. Yeah. It just takes the right people at the right time. And how do we know that those of us that are stepping up right now aren't actually setting the path ahead for that to happen? We don't.
And the other problem is that sometimes when giants fall, they destroy everything they land on, and that's where we're at. And we don't have anybody to blame. Skipper and I have talked about this before. We really, for all of our frustrations, we don't have anybody. Our frustrations with the VA, our frustrations with the Department of Defense, with the House, the Senate, the presidency, all of that. No matter what it is, it's the entire system. The only people to blame for what's going on right now are everybody who's watching and everybody on the panel.
I blame my family and neighbors and friends.
I blame Skipper.
Well, this has been going on for generations. So, I mean, we stepped into a mess just by being born at the time we were. And
absolutely, you're right, Rebecca. But what I'm saying is that a lot of us were party to the party. A lot of us played the party politics. A lot of us voted. How many? Like I've said it. I got to vote for the lesser of two evils. I'm not voting for him to be pastor. I just voting for him to do the right thing. And it's the right thing is whatever the other guy's not doing. And we've all done that. Rebecca, you're one of the few people that's never done that. Literally, you're the only person I've ever met that has never done that. And it's almost mind-boggling to me.
I just, I joined the Army when I was very young. I went to Iraq when I was very young. I came out of that. I was still very young, but I was aged through those experiences, and so I had a different perspective completely from the politics because of what happened. So I don't know. I just, people ask me very often because they're going into the Libertarian Party. You usually have like, where did you come from before? Were you Democrat or Republican? How did you see the light? Like I didn't have that path. I was never a Republican or a Democrat. He's just against the government because of Iraq. So
I'm just going to quickly address this comment. My neighbor growing up was part of this mess. His name was G. Gordon Liddy. Wasn't he in a very famous feud with a neighbor at one point after he got out of prison?
He was in a lot.
I think he was.
Yeah. Would Rebecca block me from her Facebook page? No,
I
Rebecca.
don't know you.
Well, and I would chastise her if she did, Bip.
I don't have very many people blocked. It's usually just like the spam bots that I.
Jugalassus, what do you mean you were just censured? Where were you censured? What are you talking
Filibuster.
about? No, Bip, I can guarantee you she wouldn't block you. Bip is making a reference to somebody in Nebraska that has that's actually holds office in Nebraska that blocked him.
Oh, okay. Inside joke.
Yeah. No, I can guarantee you, Bip, it would take a. If you were to the point where Rebecca was blocking you, you and I'd be having a conversation. Because I know how patient this woman is. Jugs, you're gonna have to explain to me what you mean you were censured. Where? Who censured you?
Yeah, and for Spawn Trooper, sorry, I'm seeing the like thing. Spawn Trooper. I was in Ramadi in 04 and Baghdad in 06.
So, Skipper, everybody who's here from my channel, make sure you are subbing to Veteran Nation. Make sure you are subbing to Squid Pro Quo,
as well as Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Well, if they're from my channel, I'm assuming they're subbed anyway. So
they better be.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to come out there.
And we would love everybody who is from all the other channels to sub to mine, and vice versa, and all that.
I should just get a podcast. It seems like the thing to do lately.
Yeah, because you don't have enough to do with your life, Rebecca.
Yeah.
If you ever, so I don't have that many people watching on my channel right now because I didn't really advertise that I was going to be on here, and there's a lot of my viewers. A lot of my viewers cross over with 2 other channels who are live right now. So a lot of them are going to be on replay crew. But if you ever want to come on my show on Thursday nights and talk, I'm from Wisconsin. So a lot of my people that are like friends and family who watch are from that area and have family in that area. So
did you say you're living in Georgia now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm originally from New Orleans.
Georgia.
No, Skipper. No, Skipper.
I decided to shack up with an AO from that I deployed with, and here we are in Georgia.
That's how I ended up in Minnesota. Kids later, and here we are, just Minnesota. My disadvantage was that when we met, I was like, well, I'm never moving to Minnesota, so this isn't going to work out.
What's funny is when he got out, he moved to Minnesota after he graduated college for a job, and then he moved back here, and well, here I am. Because
I think the Minnesota Libertarian Party should start its own podcast.
They do have one.
We have one. And we just campaign season happened, and everybody that was like involved on a regular basis with the podcast started running a campaign. And
isn't that the way it always goes?
Trying to like fit something else in the schedule right now. I'm like, where am I going to put that?
AT1, I don't care why you show up, just that you do. He said, I only show up to AT2 because she's an AT2. It's like, well, I don't care why. Why you show up? Just show up.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to stop by your Thursday night sometime.
Anytime.
You should have Rebecca.
Anytime that I actually do one.
You should have Rebecca on here sometime. That would be an interesting conversation. So, Skipper, do you have anything for us besides all of us falling down and worshiping at the feet of Tav for giving Squid 50 gift memberships today?
The only thing I really want to plug is everyone go check out the article I wrote for New Right Network about a Veterans Affair Media and his struggle. It's a very interesting article. His case is an interesting case, and I warn you, it will make you mad. It will piss you off. So be ready for it. But please share it everywhere because we want everyone to know about his story. And the other thing I'll say is send it to Sacramento media because no one in his local area seems to care. Start showing them that we nationally do care about his case and send it to him and tell him you should do a story on this guy.
I would like to plug that, and more just as a commentary on my subscriber base. On the last 2 weekends in a row, I've live streamed my chickens on Saturday and Sunday, both days. Sunday, I did 2.5 hours of my chickens live streamed while I was doing work in the coop and in the paddock.
The view.
I'm going to punch you in the throat.
That's how I felt when I got eggs out of my coop tonight, as I was going to punch one of my chickens in the throat.
I had, outside of the drive time dialectic that I did on the way home tonight, one of my streams this weekend for 2.5 hours had 350 viewers for my chickens. I missed my calling. I'm retiring all of my philosophical and political commentary on my channel, and from now on it's just going to be nothing but my chickens.
I gotta tell you, I love going out to the barn in the mornings just to do chores because I have dairy cows and I have a donkey and we have sheep and pigs, and like I go out there and get them all fed in the mornings, milk the cow, you know, put a leash or a lead on the donkey and, you know, take him to a spot and pet him, and I don't know, it's a very calming environment, and it's really nice, especially when life is just so chaotic sometimes, you know.
I wouldn't mind doing that in the summer, but not in the winter time. That would. My aunt and uncle, or great aunt and uncle, used to own a farm near Beloit. So, if you have any idea where that is,
AVA, yeah, the AVA said the chicken coos put my kids to sleep. It's true. The other on Sunday, he was Saturday or Sunday, one of those two. His kids were watching the live stream of my chickens with their dad, and it put them down for bedtime. Win. It's a win. That's all. It's like, just like it's a win. And this coming Sunday, I am having a special a special view members only live stream chat on my channel, and that is once again members only.
Black Robe Regiment After Dark.
No, it'll be during the daytime hours. So about 11 a.m. right after my morning chicken stream. We'll see which one gets more viewers. Well, obviously,
which one's gonna get more.
It's true. Wow, thanks, guys. But
that is true.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea right there.
I didn't know Tim Pool did a Chicken City. I don't even what the
Yeah,
heck.
he's had a camera on his chickens for at least 2 years.
I didn't know that. So
make another channel and just make it a Chicken Town, because Chicken City is taken, and you don't live in a city.
I'm fine with my Freedom Flock live streams on the weekends. So.
We do have 70 people in here all told. Everyone, please like, share, subscribe, retweet, all that good stuff.
To everybody's channels, to include the Libertarian Party in Minnesota. Not that they're putting out any content, because the one person they reached out to who they said, hey, you know, you might be a good fit for our show on Wednesdays. That person said, I don't have time. I don't know.
They should just restream Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
No,
during the campaign
that's a good way to destroy the party right there. Have you heard this guy says?
I mean, I honestly, in some of my circles, you're a little tame, so you gotta step up the game.
I won't.
We can talk about this later.
Madam Chair. Oh, Rebecca, where can everybody find you?
Oh, well,
I'm giving your home address.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Rebecca Whiting, or Rebecca Whiting for U.S. Senate. I guess I'm kind of on Twitter too, and I don't honestly even know what those handles are, because I don't get on it very much. But I have a website, Whiting for Senate, and that's a 4 like a number 4 Senate.us. So other than that, if you really want to get in touch with me, you could message the Libertarian Party of Minnesota page, and it would Facebook page, and it would get to me eventually too. So.
And Squid?
I live stream trials. I did a workout stream this morning. You can find me on Twitter. I can't even remember what my Twitter is.
Yeah.
And I'm on Instagram too, but not really. When I'm not streaming trials, I do workout streams. I have a political stream. Usually on Wednesdays, I do a WTF Wednesday, where it's like the chat the chat has their way. We talk about what they want to talk about, not what I want to talk about. And they derail me all the time. I'm derailed by chat every day. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a replay of a trial that started today, which is a military husband murder trial. A Navy chief petty officer female unalived her husband at home. I'm assuming while their 2 young children were there, and she's claiming the battered spouse defense. So because Sarah Boone is claiming the battered spouse defense as well, I'm very interested to see how they're going to spin this. He was on the phone with 911 when she shot him.
Huh.
There's that.
That'll be a fun one.
Yeah, it started today, and I was like, how did I not hear about this sooner? So I'm going to do a replay.
Yeah, at least you can find trials that have access to camera. The trials that I've been paying attention to, they threaten us with contempt of court if anybody even records. So.
Yeah, this is it's in Florida, so that should tell you everything you need to know.
Florida man.
It's Florida woman at this point, but
Skipper, nobody cares where we can find you, so
because they're already here.
VeteranNationFoundation.com. Buy some of our merch so that we can help veterans.
Don't forget the bubbles. The bubbles.
Oh yeah.
Sticker.
The what?
The bubbles sticker.
Oh yeah, we got new merch. We have here. I should have it in my. Where's my products at? Well, you can always go here here, support our nonprofit right there. I thought I had the products in here. Then I must not. Oh well, we'll get them next time. But yeah, VeteranNationFoundation.com. Support us. You can absolutely help us with our mission, and get yourself something nice, something real nice.
Oh, folks, this is, and now I work Monday through Friday with a Marine, so I got Skipper
surrounded.
I got Skipper, and now I'm working with a Marine, and what's worse is he was an Osprey crew chief, so
air winger. Good luck. All right, folks. Thank you again to Squid for joining us on our panel this evening. Thank you to TC, so he doesn't feel left out. Always a great co-host, even though I give him a hard time. And thank you to our guest, Rebecca Whiting. Good luck on your Senate campaign. We wish you a lot of success. And to all the folks out there, thank you for being worth serving.